Hey everyone, and welcome to the Early IB Foundations and Futures. I'm Josh Kalash.
I'm Megan Posh.
It's great to have you all here, especially if you are interested in the IB program, particularly the PYP Early Years Framework.
Absolutely, and we are going to be focusing on the power of play today. It's something we hear about a lot, but we wanted to unpack it for all of you.
Yeah, sometimes I think play gets pushed aside a bit when we think about academics, but it's so much more than fun and games.
Oh, it absolutely is. Even back in 2018, the Lego Foundation said how crucial play is for a child's development. It's really a universal language for learning, and it's amazing how it can break down all kinds of barriers.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. So for example, we all know kids are naturally curious. They love to explore, experiment, ask a million questions. And play is their way of doing all of that, right?
Yeah.
It's like their own personal laboratory where they can figure things out on their own terms.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is that through play, children actually start developing those core skills that the IB program emphasizes the approaches to learning, or what we call ATL skills. Things like critical thinking, research, communication, self-management. The list goes on and on.
Right. We actually have this great infographic that shows just that. It lays out how different types of play help kids develop these skills, like when they're busy drawing or making charts to record what they observe, they're unknowingly flexing those thinking muscles.
Exactly. And think about when kids are asking all those questions and exploring different possibilities. Well, their research skills get a huge boost. They're like little detectives on a mission.
That's such a good point. And we can't forget about communication, whether it's through imaginative storytelling, pretend play, or even just figuring out the rules of a game with their friends. They're constantly practicing how to use language effectively. Play is their communication boot camp.
It really is. And those social skills, learning to navigate friendships, share, compromise, all of that blossoms on the playground and during play dates.
It's like their first experience with real-world teamwork and collaboration. And what about self-management? Think about a child building a block tower. They're learning to focus, stay persistent, and deal with the frustration when that tower inevitably tumbles down.
Oh, that's such a good point. Play gives them that safe space to experiment, make mistakes, and try again without the fear of real-world consequences. It's a fantastic way to build resilience.
Now, beyond these core skills, play has a huge impact on a child's well-being overall, right?
This is where it gets really interesting. There's this infographic from Play Whales from 2020 that highlights how play can even help children recover from trauma. It's incredibly powerful for processing those big emotions, experiencing joy, and just tapping into their creativity.
So play's like an emotional reset button. I love that.
Yeah, it really captures the essence of it. In a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming, especially for little ones, play offers a sense of normalcy, control, and pure fun. It's their way of de-stressing and making sense of things.
Okay, so we've been talking about play is this amazing, multifaceted thing, but how do we actually define play? Have you ever thought about that?
It's funny. It's one of those things that we all recognize when we see it, but putting it into words is surprisingly difficult.
I completely agree. There are, however, some key characteristics that experts generally agree on. A 2018 report by UNICEF and the Lego Foundation laid these out really well.
Oh, that's a great resource. So what are some of those defining features?
Well, first and foremost, play is meaningful. It's how children make sense of the world around them. They connect new experiences with what they already know and essentially build their own understanding of how things work.
That makes perfect sense. And it goes back to what we were saying about play being their natural way of exploring and learning.
Exactly. Another defining characteristic is joy. Of course, play can have its challenges and frustrations, but at its heart, it's enjoyable. It's driven by pleasure and that intrinsic motivation and just a pure sense of fun.
I think that's so important to remember. Play shouldn't ever feel like a chore or another item on a to-do list. It should be something that kids are naturally drawn to because it brings them joy.
Absolutely. And when you see kids fully engaged in play, lost in their own world, you witness another key characteristic: active engagement. They're totally present physically, mentally, verbally. It's like they're completely immersed in that moment.
Yes, they hit that state of flow where time seems to disappear and they're just completely absorbed in what they're doing. It's magical to watch.
And play is also iterative, right? It's constantly evolving. Kids are experimenting, trying out different possibilities, practicing their skills, and refining their understanding as they go.
Yeah, it's a constant cycle of trying, maybe failing, and trying again. And through that process, they learn so much.
Finally, we can't forget the social aspect of play. It's often a collaborative effort, which allows kids to communicate their ideas, negotiate roles, and build those crucial social connections. It's their first taste of community.
It's like a miniature version of the real world, where they're learning to navigate relationships, understand different perspectives, and develop empathy for others.
Now, within the realm of play, there are different types of play experiences. The Lego Foundation had this really cool visual back in 2017 that illustrates a continuum of play. There's free play, which is entirely child-led guided play, where adults provide some scaffolding and support. And then there are games, which are more adult-designed and usually have a clearer set of rules.
That visual is so helpful. It really highlights how the level of adult control gradually increases as you move along that continuum from free play to games. But even with guided play or games, the goal is still to make sure there's that sense of joy, exploration, and agency for the child.
I think that's a great point to transition into our next section, where we'll talk about how parents and educators can support children's learning through play. I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear some practical tips.
Let's get right to it. So when we talk about supporting play, one of the first things that comes to mind is materials. Providing a variety of materials. I'm thinking traditional toys, like building blocks, art supplies, dolls, that sort of thing. But it doesn't have to be limited to that, does it?
No, I was just thinking that. Everyday household items can be just as engaging, maybe even more so, because it allows kids to really use their imaginations.
Oh, yeah. A cardboard box can become a castle, a rocket ship, a puppet theater. The possibilities are really endless. And you can't forget about nature's bounty either. Sticks, stones, leaves are all free and fantastic resources for play.
It's funny you say that because all those random things that you find around the house can be real treasures for kids. An old sheet can become a superhero's cape. A colander turns into a hat. I mean, it's amazing what they can come up with.
It really is. The key is to encourage that open-ended, imaginative play where they're in charge of the story. And that kind of brings us to space. Creating an inviting play area is super important. But it doesn't have to be anything fancy, does it?
Not at all. A cozy corner with some pillows and blankets, a designated spot for building, even just a clear space on the floor can make a world of difference. When I was a kid, I used to love building forts out of blankets and chairs. Those were some of my most cherished memories. It's all about creating a space where they feel safe and free to be themselves.
I love that. And let's not forget about the great outdoors. Backyards, parks, playgrounds. Nature is the ultimate playground. It provides endless opportunities for exploration, discovery, and just good old-fashioned fun.
So we've got materials, we've got space. What's the next ingredient in our recipe for playful learning?
Time, without a doubt. Children need uninterrupted time to really get lost in their play. It's during those extended periods that they can dive into their imaginations, really grapple with challenges, and develop those essential skills we were talking about earlier.
This can be a tough one in our busy world. It's so easy to overschedule kids and leave little room for that free, unstructured playtime. But we have to remind ourselves that play is not just a filler activity, it's valuable learning time.
It's essential. And here's another one that might be a bit challenging for some parents. Mess. Play can be messy, especially those creative activities like painting, building, digging in the dirt. It all comes with the territory.
When you said that, I immediately thought about finger painting and how my parents used to cover every surface in sight with newspaper. But you're saying we should actually embrace the mess. Help me understand that.
Well, think of it this way, that mess is evidence of learning. It means they're experimenting, exploring different materials, engaging all their senses, of course within reason, right? But a little cleanup is a small price to pay for the benefits of play, wouldn't you agree?
That's a great way to look at it. I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of parents. Now, we've talked about how adults can be a part of the play experience, but there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it, right?
Absolutely. The goal is to be a respectful participant, not a director. Follow the child's lead. Let them set the rules of their play world and try your best to resist the urge to jump in and fix things or take over.
Yeah, we want them to be the architects of their own play, and our role is to just provide that support and encouragement, maybe even learn a thing or two from their amazing imaginations.
Exactly. When adults participate in this way, it sends such a powerful message to the child. You're showing them you value their play, you're interested in their world, and you're willing to be a co-explorer right alongside them.
It's not just about showing value, though, right? Joining in allows us to extend their learning, ask thought-provoking questions, and even introduce new vocabulary in a natural, organic way. What are some examples of that?
Well, let's say they're engrossed in building a block tower. You could ask, I wonder how many blocks tall you can make it before it falls over. Or what shapes are you using to build your tower? These kinds of questions help them think critically and problem solve.
You can also model positive behaviors during play. Show them what it means to be resilient when things don't go as planned, to be flexible when the rules need tweaking, and to be cooperative when you're working together towards a common goal.
How, and you know those ATL skills we mentioned earlier? Well, you can help them strengthen those through play, too. If they're engaged in pretend play, encourage them to think about different perspectives, ask them to explain their reasoning, or help them come up with creative solutions to challenges.
It sounds like having a few open-ended questions ready to go is a good strategy. Things like, I wonder what would happen if, or how can we find out more about, or even a simple, tell me more about, can spark some really interesting conversations.
Those are fantastic examples. Sometimes the simplest questions can lead to the most amazing insights into how their minds work.
Now, I know some parents might be listening and thinking, okay, this all sounds great in theory, but I need some concrete ideas, some activities I can actually try at home. What would you say to them?
Well, the good news is that play doesn't require a ton of fancy equipment or expensive toys. Some of the most engaging activities can be done with things you already have around the house.
Like role-playing. Kids love to dress up and pretend to be different characters. You can encourage that by having a box of old clothes, hats, scarves, anything goes, and then let them create their own stories.
Building forts or dens is another classic. Blankets, pillows, chairs, cardboard boxes, all of that can be transformed into magical hideaways. And once the fort is built, the imaginative play possibilities are endless.
I love this one. Reading the book, going on a bear hunt, and then creating your own bear hunt adventure around the house or backyard. You can even use different materials to represent the obstacles from the book. A blue sheet for the river, cushions for the mud.
Yep.
It's a great way to bring a story to life.
Building caves out of cardboard boxes is another fun one. Kids can decorate them, create secret entrances, even connect multiple boxes to make a whole cave system. It's fantastic for their creativity, problem solving, and those fine motor skills.
For something that combines play with, like math and sorting skills, try treasure sorting. Gather a collection of small objects from around the house. Buttons, coins, shells, little toys. Have your child sort them into different categories. They can sort by color, shape, size, or come up with their own creative categories. And while they're sorting, engage them in conversations about how they made their decisions.
Those are all fantastic ideas, and the most important thing is to follow your child's lead and let their interests guide the play. If they're obsessed with cars, set up a racetrack. If dinosaurs are their thing, create a dinosaur dig. When you tap into what excites them, that's when the real magic happens.
I love that. And the more we encourage and support their play, the more they will learn, grow, and thrive.
Exactly. And that brings us to the heart of what we've been discussing today. Play is not just something separate from learning. It's not about, keeping kids entertained. It's a really integral part of their development. It's through play that they actually, develop those social, emotional, and cognitive skills they need to thrive. Yeah. And what really stood out to me was just how much power we have as parents and educators to shape those play experiences. It's not about buying expensive toys or creating those Pinterest-worthy playrooms. It's about being intentional with the materials we provide and the space we create and the time we allow for that unstructured play. And, sometimes it's even about letting go of our need for control and just embracing the mess and the chaos that comes with play.
It's so true. When we step back and really observe children at play, we can learn so much about how they think, how they problem solve, how they interact with the world. And when we actually join them in that play, we're not just supervising, we're really actively participating in their learning journey.
So to all the parents and educators listening, as you go about your day, think about how you can create more of those playful learning opportunities for the kids in your life.
It could be as simple as setting up a sensory bin with some rice and scoops, or going on a nature walk and collecting treasures, or just building a fort in the living room and letting those imaginations run wild. Yeah, the important thing is to make play a priority, to create a space where children feel safe to explore, experiment, and just express themselves without judgment or limitations.
And remember to have fun. Play is a joy. It's a celebration of childhood and a reminder that learning can be an adventure.
I think that's the perfect note to end on. Play is as important as the academics in shaping the emotional and social development of a child. Thanks for joining us today on the Early IB Foundations and Futures.
We'll see you next time.